Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where Come and Skit Counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 145, and we are covering Mama Grimm's baby boy, the ever-loving blue-eyed thing, the pride of Yancy Street, the muscle of the Fantastic Four. Ben Grimm has a number of sobriquets and so many catchphrases, and I think it's partially because he's still a product of that era of, very, very early Marvel. I mean, Fantastic Four is essentially the beginning of the Marvel universe as we fully understand it. So it's just a lot of fun. And as a big Fantastic Four fan myself, I've been looking forward to doing this episode for a while. So thank you to our present level patron, Matt, who selected him. And Matt, as he always does, gave us a fantastic write-up. So we'll get to that in just a sec. But before we get into that, next week, we're going to be inserting an interview with Alan and Will, the creators of Pocus Hocus. If you recall back a couple episodes before our hiatus, we brought them on for issue 2, which had a very successful Kickstarter. And so now we are getting ready for issue 3, which will be coming out on Kickstarter, I believe, this week. January 25th is when it drops, I believe. So we're going to be doing a giveaway, and we'll have more information about that in the episode next week. But if you don't already follow us on Instagram, you should go ahead and follow us at Capes on the Couch, because we are going to be giving away copies of issues 1 and 2 to a handful of listeners and supporters, so that you will be all caught up on issue 3 by the time that Kickstarter completes itself. So Alan and Will, great guys. Had a fantastic time chatting with them. And so they reached out to me and said, hey, we want to come back on the show when issue 3 comes out. And we said, absolutely, because Doc and I both, really enjoyed not just the discussion, but just the book itself. And so very much looking forward to issue 3. I've seen some of the preview stuff. It's the joys of perks of this gig as we get the exclusive stuff before you all do.
True swag.
Yes. So, anyway, so like I said, follow us on Instagram, and we'll have deets about that giveaway next week when the episode drops. So, Ben Grimm, The Thing, created by the iconic legends Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in The Fantastic Four, number 1, November 1961. So, if you're listening to this show, there's a high likelihood you've probably read a comic involving the Fantastic Four at some point, or you're at least familiar with the characters through their many media iterations. I'm not really going to talk about their history on the big screen because it's less than stellar. Although, to be fair, Ben has always been one of the better portrayed ones. I wouldn't say that the casting has been really an issue, or the characterization hasn't really been the issue for Ben. Nobody looks at those films and says, well, the film was great, but the thing really stunk up the place. Like Michael Chiklis, I thought, was inspired casting, and he did an amazing job with what he was given. And so anyway, Ben Grimm is a pilot and college friend of Reed Richards. And while flying an experimental rocket ship with Reed, his girlfriend Sue, and Sue's brother Johnny aboard, the ship is bombarded with cosmic rays, which irreversibly alter all 4 travelers, and Ben's body becomes covered in an orange rocky hide, and he dubs himself The Thing. So Reed attempts several times to reverse his transformation, but he is unable to make it permanent. Ben does revert back to human form on occasion, though largely through magical means, and later on, Reed does create this, I forget if it's a watch or a ring, that gives Ben the ability to turn human for 24 hours once a year. And so inevitably, there's always something that requires him to, just beat the clock when he's, trying to do whatever it is that he can do in human form. And then he changes at the last second, and because that's how comics work. So He had a starring role in the Marvel 2-in-1 series because Thing was, for whatever reason, one of the breakout heroes of the Fantastic Four. And so in the mid-70s, Marvel 2-in-1, each issue is basically the Thing and a guest star. So it was the Thing and Spider-Man, or the Thing and Moon Knight, or the Thing and, some other random character that Ben ordinarily wouldn't come across in the pages of a Fantastic Four story. But they said, well, everybody loves the ever-loving blue-eyed Thing, so let's stick him with all these different characters. So in Secret Wars, he stays on Battleworld once the big fighting with the Beyonder is over, because the planet provides him the ability to change to a human at will. So She-Hulk joins the Fantastic Four in his stead until he returns after defeating an evil version of himself, and that basically blows up Battleworld because they had to find a way to get the Thing back to, the Earth. So upon returning, he discovers that his on-again, off-again love, Alicia Masters, who is blind, she's a sculptor, she is dating Johnny Storm. But this Alicia is later revealed to be a Skrull named Lyja.
Because comics.
So Ben and Sharon Ventura are hit with cosmic rays, and Sharon becomes the She-Thing, while Ben becomes more powerful and even rockier, if such a thing were possible. So the thing about the Fantastic Four is they've got lots of different stories, but the Thing, he's got kind of the same characterization throughout, and most of his stories tend to just be, I don't want to say repetitive, but you know what you're getting when you read the Thing. So a recurring story for Ben often involves the Yancy Street gang where he grew up. At various points, they've been rivals and partners, with Ben even leading the gang at one point during his earlier years. His brother was involved, and his brother died. He was involved with the gang. And so Ben kind of, like I said, had a on-again, off-again thing with the Yancy Street gang, and he references them quite regularly. He often also references his Aunt Petunia, who we don't see until many, many years into the comics, at which point it's revealed that she's not that much older than he is, and she's actually quite a stunner. So he joins the New Avengers after Siege, serving on both teams simultaneously. And in the current ongoing run written by Dan Slott, which I've been reading since it started, I've read the last couple of volumes of Fantastic Four. I always add it to my pull list. He finally married Alicia, although their honeymoon was interrupted by a rampaging Hulk, who was under the control of the Puppet Master, who is Alicia's father. So that's kind of been one of the big stories. And during that honeymoon was one of those times where Ben was able to turn himself human for, a brief period, and the Hulk is fighting him and everything. And so it's like this whole thing. It's a good story. And like I said, the thing about the thing about the Thing is that, again, you know what you're getting when you get these kinds of stories. It's just, he is who he is. But like I said, I've always been a fan of the Fantastic Four. I've read countless runs. I've got several of them in my cabinet, in my long boxes, because they're always so rich in terms of their relationships and what you can mine from that. And Reed's genius, and Sue being who she is, and Johnny's hot-headedness. And we could just wax philosophical and talk about the fact that the Fantastic Four really broke the mold in terms of comic book writing and so on and so forth, because Stan said, I'm going to make these real people with real foibles and flaws, and they're not all going to get along swimmingly, that there's going to be a lot of bickering and so on and so forth, like a real family. So,
Yeah.
It's a really long-winded way for me to say I really love the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I know I've always skewed DC, especially growing up. So Fantastic Four was much more a zeitgeist thing for me. I knew of them. I don't think I read them as they were coming along, but I've always gone back and basically binged on certain runs in the past, so I got very familiar with them. And yeah, I gravitate towards anything that, I'll be honest, where Reed leads. But the Thing, I'm grateful as a character, if we're talking psychiatry, and I guess we are, that's the whole point of this podcast. It's great because his consistency allows for a true deep dive, and you'll see what we mean shortly.
Yeah. So getting into the issues, Matt does his wonderful write-ups and does a lot of the heavy lifting for us. No pun intended there. So the theme for Ben is hard outer shell and rough edges. And that's both his external presentation as a character and also his internal struggle. So the first thing is insecurity and self-loathing. It's been his chief, most famous character-defining trait since his inception. He's horrified by his physical appearance and thinks it makes him a monster both inside and out. He's just one of those people that doesn't feel like he deserves anything good in life, no matter how much he does as a hero. As such, he's often at the root of sabotaging his own happiness, particularly in his romantic relationships. He thinks that by pushing the people closest to him away, he's protecting them from disappointment and pain. But as I had to learn in my early 20s, this is Matt speaking, that's something people just do instinctively when they think very little of themselves. Life Story would go into this a little deeper, and we'd learn he was a lot like this before he became the Thing. The war keeps changing thanks to Marvel's sliding timescale, but he's not particularly proud of the things he did overseas in the Marines and just doesn't generally feel like he's someone worthy of being loved. He also frequently turns down cures to his condition, making up some dumb excuse about the team needing him or another. So this insecurity, it is definitely one of his defining traits, and we've spoken about numerous characters that go through the self-loathing and the insecurity, and they feel like they don't deserve anything good. Jessica Jones, certainly among them. But it's that interesting connection between the internal struggle and his outward appearance that really define who Ben is as a character. So, Doc, I'll let you get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, the whole premise behind most of the Fantastic Four characters in terms of the development of their abilities after an unforeseen event is that it's not so much that it's random chance, it's that it's an expansion of what they were already either experiencing in the moment or what internally they were going through and they didn't have another way to process it. And I love that fact. And so with Ben, it's clearly the idea that the world, in his view, is not something that he can't handle, but it's something that, because it can be such a difficult place, he basically has started to project the idea inward that if that's what's going on the outside, then what does that say about me? Because in a way, and for anyone that does this, including myself, you're being incredibly selfish. You're basically saying that you're so important to what's going on the outside that when things are going wrong, it's your fault. And it's a projection. It's not necessarily the most accurate thing. As a matter of fact, it's incredibly inaccurate. I don't want to make someone more depressed by pointing out it's, in general, you're fairly insignificant to the world as a whole. There's billions of people out there. You're just one. But at the same time, to those people that are nearest to you, you are very important and you're crucial to their lives. And somehow you end up minimizing that. So it's this really strange dichotomy. On one hand, you're expounding on how nobody should be around you because, heaven forbid, you do something wrong or you've made a mistake in the past and you're fearful that it's going to happen again, which leads to anxiety. But on the other hand, for the people closest to you that are saying, actually, you've done a lot of great things, you can't accept that. You outright, as Matt pointed out, you reject it because it's much cleaner. It's much simpler to go through life with the idea that you and your decisions alone are for yourself, and anything else that you do is going to be less impactful that way. And therefore, if anything goes wrong, you could say, well, it's my fault. But what about when things go right? What if you do something that's really cool? Well, you have to play that down because then you're going to have expectations in the future that that's going to happen again. And if the world has already shown you that it's not always going to happen, then once again, it's much simpler to say, well, that was all random chance. Don't put any of that on me, or you place the accolade on someone else because it's easier to give credit to someone that you think is more worthy of handling it because for some reason their value is greater than yours, which is not accurate once again. But these are all the defense mechanisms that come through so clearly. I see this so commonly in people with anxiety and depression that it's instinctual for me to launch into this type of discussion. But this is one of those situations, as I know we've gone through several times. And as we were writing this entire episode, I confided in Anthony that this is something that I have struggled with my entire life as well.
And same here. I was going to say the notion is, I don't know how accurate this is for you, but if bad things happen to me, it's because they're meant to happen. If good things happen, it was a fluke.
Exactly. And I'll take it further. And it's actually come up at work at this point that everybody that has come close to me at work and has worked with me directly and knows me over time, they always point out, wow, you don't take compliments well. And the reason I have problems is because I say, well, I need to make sure that other people recognize that they're worthy of love and respect. And they say, yeah, but we're giving it back to you. Please take it. It's a gift. And I point, and there have been some very candid times where I said, yeah, but I don't need gifts. And I say it the wrong, and that's my point. I say it that way because that's not the truth. I'll admit I'm lying about it. It's because I don't deserve gifts. That's 100% irrational. That is a fallacy. And like I said, there are people that I'm very comfortable talking to about that. And that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast, because your therapist, I guarantee you, has their own things that they have worked out either for themselves or with the help of someone else. And we are all walking this path trying to find the right way. This is one of those where actually, as you could tell, I hope you could tell in my voice, it's actually something I'm comfortable with. This is one of those inadequacies that I actually have started to ingratiate the idea that, yes, this is what I do. And you know what? It's a quirky part of myself rather than saying it's a horrible part of myself that should be shamed. There's a difference there. And I'll get into therapy about that and treatment for that later. But I'm just letting you know, yes, I am acknowledging this the same way that Ben has been acknowledging it as part of his character. But the point is, sometimes you can make it a feature instead of a bug. It's something that if you're going to carry it, doggone it, at least carry it in a way that's going to make you productive, that's going to make you enjoy life rather than suck the energy out of yourself and everybody else around you.
So don't hold back. Tell us how you really feel. I feel for once I get to say this to you because I know normally I'm the one who tends to go off on these sorts of tirades and rants, but the shoe's on the other foot here. But as you were saying it, I was like, literally everything you're saying also applies to me because I get super awkward turtle if someone gives me a compliment. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. But yes. And to the beginning of what you were saying, and I didn't want to interrupt you at that point, is the expression, to the world, you were just one person, but to one person, you were the world. This is very true that yes, there are 7 billion people on the planet. The world does not revolve around you. I don't care how important or popular or famous you may be, at the end of the day, the world still will continue spinning on. So your decisions don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world, but the sphere of influence that you have in your own personal life and the actions that you take do have an impact on those around you. And so that is something that you should keep in perspective. And it's something that I try and do and stay mindful of, because whether it's, you, Doc, or, obviously my wife and my son, my immediate family, those around me, I try and be aware and keep that in perspective that if I'm having a rough day, it's not because the world is against me, and I can go to those that I trust, present company included, obviously, and say, hey, I need a little bit of a pick me up. I'm feeling a bit down on myself. And I don't do it for an ego boost. It's not about, tell me how awesome I am. It's just, hey, I'm feeling a little self-doubt. Could you just help me out there? And if you have good friends, you have people that you love and trust, and Doc and I are blessed to know many such people. It's a wonderful feeling, and it helps abate those kinds of down moments a lot. So moving on to the second one, inadequacy. Always feeling second best. This was way more prevalent in the Lee Kirby years, but man, the fact that there are heroes like Thor and the Silver Surfer in the world who are canonically stronger than he is, but look like classic art masterpieces come to life, just eats at him. And of course, there's the Hulk. Oh boy, he does not like being compared with the Hulk. His whole I've got more heart than anyone else thing and relying on willpower to carry him through fights is great for storytelling, but he's not top tier in strength in the Marvel Universe, and he's well aware of the fact. The one story where he was getting hell beat out of him, and he was like, yeah, but I'm just too dumb to give up. Like, that's how he plays it. He's like, I refuse to give up. And even in the honeymoon where he's getting the the snot beat out of him by the Hulk. He's like, I have to stand back up again. Ben is definitely one of those characters. You knock him down 7 times, he'll get up 8. He may take a long time, but you are not going to keep him down.
Yeah. And when you put it that way, it shows resiliency, which is a great coping mechanism or trait, depending on how you want to phrase it. If you're someone that seems to quote unquote turn it on and turn it off based on the situation, then I would say it's a coping mechanism. If it seems like something you don't even think about and instinctually, no matter what the circumstance, you are prone to do that, then I would say it's a trait. The issue, though, that may result from that, and I know Matt pointed out inadequacy, there may also be hints of jealousy, but oh boy, I have to be careful because once again, a lot of this is projection. When you start comparing yourself to other people, there's the phrase comparison is the thief of joy. So we get it. The Thing is a physically strong character. Those other characters are also strong. The idea that somehow, because they are strong and they have other attributes that are different than what Ben has, somehow those get meshed together. And when you start creating this hierarchy in your head of where things should be, you're going to start to change what your expectations are for your own goals. In all honesty, in life, there's only one race that you're running. You're running your race for what you want. You're not running anyone else's race. But because we all live in a society where we're all interacting, we sometimes create a construct where we make it a competition, and now everybody's in the lanes right next to us, and we're constantly looking left and right, saying, what is everybody else doing? If you want to take it to one of my things that I love talking about with finances, keeping up with the Joneses is one of the most common phrases. The idea that you have to have what your neighbors have, otherwise somehow you're not, your self-worth is now connected with your net worth. So things like that as just one random aside of an example, because I don't want to just make it the comics and the physical thing, because there's way more to life than just physical stuff. But it could also be who someone is dating. If that person is like a successful, quote unquote successful, whatever that means, person in their field or their looks or whatever, any of these areas that one person considers important, you're just constantly doing this battle, which in all honesty is just a battle with yourself, but you're making it about the other person. And heaven forbid the other person actually feeds into it, because they may actually do that. They may actually create that external battle, which now you're just using as validation for what you were doing in the first place, which may not be healthy. Or it could spur both of you to do great things. I don't want to automatically say it's bad. I just want it to be something that if you're conscious of it, if you're intentional with it, it can be a boon to your life as a whole. But if you're doing it unconsciously, and you're wondering why you're not getting feelings of satisfaction or joy or pleasure in things that used to be pleasurable, it's because you're robbing yourself of the opportunity. So just being mindful of it can be great. But if you're just like struggling through, then, well, you're gonna probably just make things much more angst-ridden and much more contentious. I'll put it that way. So it's just something to be very careful with.
Yeah. Competition is not inherently in and of itself a bad thing. But the key thing, and I've said this before on the show, really the only person you should be competing with is yourself. I used to say you just have to be a better version of yourself than you were yesterday. But I've expanded that to the person that you were last year. And the reason why I've expanded the time frame is because day to day, the variations in your personality, your outlook, your mental headspace, etc., are going to shift. And so if you have a bad day, what you don't want to do is sit there and go, oh, yesterday I was doing great. Today I'm having a really horrible day. Well, I guess I backslid, whatever. It's up and down. It's going to be up and down. The key thing is, are you happier than you were last year? Are you more comfortable with yourself than you were last year? And so I think if we expanded on that time frame a little bit, that helps even out some of those aberrations or those fluctuations that happen day to day. I know the common expression is, just you're in the race with yourself from yesterday. But the other thing I wanted to talk about and mention I thought was an interesting thing that you'd brought up, was the idea of competing with someone else. And you're projecting that internal competition on someone else. But the idea that they then feed into that, I think, is something that I hadn't really considered. And this idea of saying, well, if you're going to put all this on me, then I might as well do that, because if you think that I'm ahead of you, because that's in many cases, that's what it is. You're projecting that someone else is ahead of you and where you want to be, and they're just going to feed into that.
Yeah, I know we usually do just like that one back and forth because we like to have a certain flow to the show. But I just thought of a great example of this where in the moment, it seemed like it might be a negative, but turned out overall into a positive, because we haven't made many wrestling references in a while. So I'm going to go to what I consider, and I may be wrong because I don't know these people personally, Triple H and The Rock. Because when the Attitude Era was going on, at that time, Triple H at some points was considered an egomaniacal wrestler that was just using nepotism to get what he wanted. And then there were times where people said, whoa, this guy's pretty good. And The Rock was initially like, well, he just has the family backing and he probably won't do much if it weren't for them. And then it's like, whoa, this guy's pretty good. And they had their matches together and those were pretty good. And they've actually talked about how, I like the way Triple H said it. He basically said, yeah, the rivalry, it wasn't there, but it was there. And they would talk about times where they would see each other in the gym and it would just push them to work harder. And now outside of wrestling, because they don't really do that much anymore, you have one guy that's a huge part of a major corporation, regardless of any of the nepotism part, where legitimately he was building up kind of a side branch, which unfortunately is going its own direction in NXT. But the point was he was trusted to do that because he was really good with the business. And then you have this other guy who's basically one of the biggest stars in the world, that has a fantastic career and has opened up about a lot of things that he wouldn't have been able to do if it weren't for those types of motivations. So it's just fascinating when you take things that in theory could have been much more devastating, because in wrestling, actually, there are plenty of examples where guys just simply hated each other and that's just the way it was. And it actually brought a lot of negativity to their life. And this could have been one of those examples, and it was the exact opposite. And if you want to look at an example of where that went, there's a great YouTube clip where they're joking about how they were going to do another WrestleMania with each other. And it looks like they're trying to feed into it, and out of nowhere, they just make it kind of a comedy skit where they're just playing off the fact, like, who's going to pick up the check, because they both have enough money that they could do it at any time. And it's great to see that. And I hope that people recognize there's nothing wrong with competition with other people. There's nothing wrong with competition with yourself. You can make it whatever it is that you decide to make it. It doesn't have to be negative.
Yeah. Doc has relayed to me that, when we were in high school, there was this unspoken competition between us. And I always felt like I had to compete against him because we were in a lot of the same classes together and, at the time, both wanted to be cardiologists. So it was a healthy competition, but there was a little bit, at least for me, and, I'll be perfectly honest here, at least from my end, there was a little bit of, well, I'm not going to let him get better grades than me, et cetera, et cetera. And because I am a competitive person just by nature. That's kind of who I am.
You finished just ahead of me, you jerk.
I finished one slot ahead of him in the class ranking. That's correct. And in fact, it cost him $1,000 in scholarship because of where we were in the ranking. I was like 4.9 in the top 4.9% of the class, and he was in 5.1. And because I was within the top 5%, I got an extra $1,000, and he had to settle for being in the top 10%.
Yeah, see, okay, but that's just for that state scholarship. The college I went to, they basically said, yeah, don't worry about that. So they took care of me. So yeah, I'm not bitter. I am not bitter, you son of a
bitch. Love you too, bro. So the third one, and this is a really interesting issue that Matt brought up, is playing dumb for some reason. Ben is not dumb muscle, not even close. You don't get to be a test pilot in any branch of the military or an astronaut in NASA without being several standard deviations above average intelligence. The man has multiple advanced degrees in engineering and can fix pretty much anything mechanical or electrical that breaks down, even when it's a one-of-a-kind invention of Reed's. He can instinctively pilot just about any vehicle he comes across, even if it's alien and he has no idea how it works. But for whatever reason, he seems to purposely cultivate an image of being the team's dumb guy with his gruff, matter-of-fact Lower East Side manner of speaking. With his enemies, I get it, it's useful to be underestimated. But among friends and other superheroes where there's no need for it, I don't get it. Now, I have some theories about why he does this, but I will wait until you provide your professional expertise on this, and then I will sort of comment as the Fantastic Four aficionado that I am.
It's comfortable. I don't necessarily know I have a psychodynamic or really deep base opinion on this particular thing. I think this is just building up on what we've already been talking about. If you are with people that have to navigate very complex situations, and to relate it to our lives, if you have a job or if you have a family dynamic with multiple people involved, or you are organizing something and there's everybody that has their role. The point is, you have to do your job. And if you do your job well, you get rewarded. If you don't do your job well, then you're either going to have less of a role or you're going to get chastised or punished in some way for not doing as good a job as you should have. So that's pretty basic to me. I don't necessarily think that it was a matter of saying that he had to start to branch out more, because let's be honest, what are the rewards for that? If you're in a situation where you have a person that is a bona fide genius with an IQ off the charts and has lots of research and publications and all other stuff that they're doing, they're not going to say, oh, well, how do you compare to that? Once again, to bring it back to the previous point, if other people are making that comparison, you don't have to do that if that's not even expected of you. If your job is to make sure that everything is running from a physical standpoint in terms of plant management where you work, okay, great. You may have a lot of background knowledge in lots of other areas, but that's not what's being asked of you. So just completing those tasks and being rewarded for those tasks, well, you're just going to continue to do that. It can lead to complacency, but it also may lead to, for example, if that's your job, you're going to get paid for it. If it's a situation where you are trying to provide for your family, it's great to branch out into other things, but that's not going to put food on the table. So there's always competing incentives to why people do things. I mean, that's almost basic behavioral stuff. If you want to get deeper in it, I guess the other part goes back to the idea of what people's expectations are of you and your view of how quickly you want to push the boundaries. Some people are rebellious. You may say, like, you know what, well, screw you, I'll do whatever I want anyway. I mean, if that's something that you tend to do, then fine, you're going to see that friction, and that friction is going to create change faster in general. But it also could get you fired if that's your job. So there's always a spectrum of risk with how you act in certain circumstances. And if you're willing to fit the mold more, then you're going to just end up creating a feedback loop of fitting that mold consistently. And if you're going to push the boundaries, then you're going to break the mold. But at the same time, that also means, what are you going to do with the fragments that are left? Are you going to recreate them for something else and keep trying? Are you just going to do something completely different and you may not have the support? So, these are just rambling thoughts at this point. I'm not sure I have to, just automatically make a totally coherent point to it. And I will defer to you as the Fantastic Four expert in terms of specifically why Ben would do this. But this is something that I think everybody does, not necessarily because they're trying to deal with some sort of psychodynamic issue or psychoanalytic issue that has been long stemming. It's more like you fit in where you get in.
Well, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head in terms of where I was going to go with it. It's a situation where, again, going back to the earlier point about the inadequacy or the second best, Ben is smart. Yes. He's not Reed smart. So he's not going to try to say, well, I'm almost as smart as Reed. None of the Fantastic Four are morons. They're all very intelligent. Even Johnny, who comes across as the cavalier playboy, is still pretty damn smart in his own right. So we're not dealing with morons by any stretch of the imagination. To your point, though, fit in where you get in. It's that the things that Ben can do carve out a particular role for him on the team. And so I think it's just that he's comfortable in speaking the way that he speaks. He's comfortable coming across how he comes across because he knows that the Fantastic Four are a family and that they're going to love him no matter what. And he doesn't, it's almost the opposite of that previous point where the inadequacy and the feeling second best. He doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. He doesn't have to prove his intelligence to Reed, Johnny, or Sue because they know how smart he is. They know who he is. And so I don't think he necessarily plays dumb. I just think it's a situation where he doesn't feel the need to play up his intelligence because what's it going to do? What's the point of it?
Yeah. And I'm glad that you just brought that up because I think there's another angle to approach this in general. And I apologize if this particular episode is sounding selfish. That's not my intention. But I'm just thinking, okay, I'll try and relate it to something besides myself. Let's say you were considered the class clown. Like in school, you were the one that would make everybody laugh. You're always telling jokes. People do consider you to be funny. After your high school or college career, whatever, it's done, you decide to join an improv comedy group. What is your identity then? You're no longer, quote unquote, the funny one because you're with a bunch of other people that are the funny ones. So you're going to end up, not because you're intentionally looking to do so, but you're going to have a separate niche within that subgroup that is going to distinguish you. It's just human nature. People are going to try and pick out what is it that's unique about you, or you're going to want to present something that's unique about you within that particular group. So are you the highbrow intellectual comedy one? Are you the slapstick one? Are you the foul mouth, like super dirty joke one? Or what is it? And it's not necessarily saying that that's always going to be you in every situation, but with this group, that's where your niche was. And so people come to learn that about you. And yet, when you go back to those other environments where it's just you may actually think to yourself, maybe not, but you might, I have a bit more range than I thought, even within my comedy. I'm grateful that I saw these other variations that I wouldn't have been exposed to either, but now I'm just back to being the funny one. So that can apply to intelligence, that can apply to athletics, that can apply to work ethic, that can apply to entertainment, like all sorts of different things. And it's just natural that when you are with other people, and I will bring it back now to myself to bring this point home, what do you call the person who gets the lowest passing grade in med school? Doctor. We were all the smart ones. So it wasn't a matter of saying, oh, well, you're smart. We didn't identify ourselves that way. So that's always going to happen amongst groups of people. If you all have what's considered to be the trait somewhere else, if you're with other people with that similar trait, then you're going to end up being distinguished in a different category. And it's not an insult. It's not necessarily a bad thing unless you decide, and this is the part that some people get mad at, it is your choice. You can decide to make that a negative or a positive.
I'll bring this again full circle to our group of friends, not to get too personal, but just again, as an example, amongst our regular poker group, we've got lawyers, doctors, engineers. Everybody in our poker group is very intelligent within our fields. So to your point again, we all come at it as being one of the smart ones individually, but now together, you mix us all in, we're all smart. So who's the smart one in the group now? Nobody, because we're all smart. So we all have our areas of individual stuff. I'm not certainly going to opine on any medical knowledge, just like I know Fair's not going to talk about the law because he's a doctor and that's not his area. Rob's not going to talk about the law or medicine because he's the engineer. He knows how to fix printers. So
oh my God,
that's a running joke internally for anybody who's listening. But again, the point is that we've all got our niche separately, but you put us all together, we're not going to start competing over, who got what GPA and IQ and this, that, and the other. Like, no, we all just work together. We all have fun together and we have different dynamics within that group. But the intelligence, I don't want to say cancels out, but it's drastically downplayed because it's not really a thing. So I think for Ben, again, in this group, it's not that he's dumb muscle. It's that the intelligence isn't as big of a deal, aside from Reed, because Reed is so far above everybody else that's even amongst the Fantastic Four, Reed is the smart one. But there's still, as Matt pointed out, several standard deviations above average intelligence. There's nothing wrong with that. So to bring it back, to externalize this a bit, so this episode doesn't just become Anthony and Doc talk about ourselves and our friends. It's think about your dynamic within your various spheres of influence. Your family, you play a role within your family. You play a role at work. You play a role within your circle of friends. Think about your role and how you code switch. You act a certain way at work. You wouldn't act that way with your friends. Vice versa. You can act a fool with your friends. You're not going to pull that stuff at work. And you're not going to do either of those things when you're with your family. Or maybe you do. I don't know. But that notion of going back to fit in where you get in, you play a role within that particular circle. And if you're fortunate, you get to play multiple different roles, and you have multiple facets to your personality that give you those opportunities to share those parts and play those roles with different groups of people. And if you find yourself wanting to share a part of yourself, but the roles you're in don't allow it, find a new group. Find a group that gives you that outlet, that gives you that opportunity, that lets you be the creative one, the funny one, the smart, whatever it is that you feel is being underappreciated or underrepresented within yourself. Because if you don't give yourself that outlet, you're going to start to resent it, and you're going to start to externally resent the people around you for not letting you be you. It's not entirely their fault, because you're going to externalize that internal struggle, but find a group that allows you to play that role. So that's our little bit of advice there. So we're going to take a break, plug our sponsor and some other shows, and we get back, we'll get into treatment. Stay tuned. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? BetterHelp will assess your individual needs and match you with a licensed professional therapist. You can begin communicating within 48 hours.
It isn't a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online. BetterHelp has a network of over 15,000 counselors with a broad range of expertise. You can log in and message your counselor anytime and get timely and thoughtful responses. You can also schedule regular video or phone sessions. No waiting room required.
BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if you feel you don't have a good connection. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial help is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/capes, that's better HELP, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional.
Special offer for Capes on the Couch fans. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/capes.
Hi, I'm one of the High Priests of Khonshu Ray, and I have the sacred privilege of providing you, the loony listener, with a podcast honouring Marvel's very own Moon Knight. So join me and a host of others at Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or support the show by becoming a Patreon member. Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. It's time to get your Khonshu on.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Whitley, and you're listening to Capes on the Couch.
And we're back. So treatment, and as we said earlier, the theme is hard outer shell, rough edges. So Doc has come up with an interesting treatment suggestion for Ben in universe. So let's start with that. Go ahead, Doc.
Sure. I know you've all heard me say that you should try and be comfortable in your own skin. Well, Ben literally is the exact opposite. It's clear he's not. But here's the thing. I'm not sure he ever really wanted to be. He doesn't want to address that part of it, other than saying either pejoratively, like, this is what I look like and that's that, or, hey, if someone actually can fix it without me ever having to think about it again, that would be just fine. all of the in-between work doesn't happen. So let's just start with the basics. And I know this can be projected to ourselves. Part of the reason why we have people give themselves body exams to check for cancer is not because people don't want to know whether or not something is wrong. It's because there are certain parts of our bodies that either we feel insecure about or we know that the second that we touch them, it feels awkward. I'm not saying this as an insult. I'm just saying it as an observation. There has to come a time, or there should come a time, hopefully, in your life where that's no longer the case. And so Ben actually touching his own arm and going through every crevice, crack, canyon, and all the other things that are done. I'm not a geologist. I don't know what those rocks are. But the point is just actually feeling himself and almost being able to diagram what's where and how it changes over time, or what the different pressures are and how they make him feel in certain moments. Having someone close to him, it could be Alicia, just guiding through that, including parts that he feels should never be touched. This is the exact opposite. Those should be touched. You need to know yourself. And just getting started with that allows for a level of comfort that he could have never imagined before that. And in all honesty, I'm not saying that that's the whole out of universe thing, because there is obviously a much more psychological component to the out of universe, but it's pretty darn important for us too. So if you don't know enough about your own body in terms of what's going on, you might want to take some time and do it, because otherwise you're going to be leaving it to a complete stranger, usually a doctor that, although they may be your doctor, they don't see you every day and they don't know you like that. And you're going to rely on that person to say, oh, well, this looks wrong, or what's changed over time. The more feedback you give, the better chance you have with whatever's going on.
Alicia would actually be the perfect person to do it because she's blind, and not to daredevil extent, but because she's compensated by touch and she knows what Ben feels like by touch. She can definitely help him in that regard. So I think Alicia would really be a fantastic person. And because she's a sculptor, so she's all about touch. She is kind of the perfect person to help guide him. So even outside of the therapist office, she can help get him accustomed to that and help him feel his way to being comfortable in his own skin. And I also think it's a credit to us that we were able to have that entire discussion about feeling themselves and not make a single sexual joke, because I have the mind of a 12-year-old and that's where my brain was going. But I didn't say anything until just now. I had to ruin it. So out of universe, obviously, we take away the superpowers and everything, but there's definitely an analog there for someone who is insecure about their appearance, who feels inadequate, who is downplaying all of their positive traits. Frankly, I think we all know somebody like this. We've all encountered somebody like this. And at various points in our life, we have been this person. And I really think that's one of the reasons why Ben and the Fantastic Four in general are so relatable as characters, because there's something in each of those four characters that is so inherently relatable to every single person who reads these comics and to every single person in general. We've all been Reed, Ben, Sue, and Johnny at various points in our life. It just, that's how it is. And so what would you say to someone who's currently feeling like Ben?
Well, first, when I make sure that I'm aware of the transference and countertransference situation, as I've already discussed, that's something that any therapist will do, because we have to be aware. Don't project what you're going through onto the person. And this type of case is actually one where I really have to be aware of that. Supportive therapy, in the sense that if a person truly has a low sense of self-worth to the point that either they think life is not worth it, or if they went to sleep, they would be okay with the idea of not waking up, things like that. Just identifying if it's gone to that point, or suicidality, just quick overall supervision of what's going on. If they're not at that point, let's say that they're thankfully are not at that point, then recognizing that the person has developed, at least for their life, certain coping mechanisms that they consider to be positively adaptive, finding out what those are, reinforcing them,
because the fear that I have as a therapist is not just critiquing what the person is doing that may be maladaptive, but then throwing out what they have been doing that's still positive, because that person, that patient may have a tendency to, just the second that there is a criticism, and I know we didn't really talk about this with the issues themselves, they may latch onto the criticism to the point of not just saying you're right, but it's, wow, you were right all along. I need to start completely over because I'm not worth anything based on what I know of myself, and try and create something brand new. Like, no. We're not starting from scratch. You're doing well. We're just making minor tweaks here and there. It doesn't have to be a wholesale change. And sometimes people like this will try very hard, actually, to recreate everything about themselves so that things get better, because they view their self-esteem is low enough that they think that's what is necessary, when most of the time it's not. So calibrating it so that they know that this is minor progressions over whatever period of time. I'm not even going to say that it has to be long. Sometimes this is episodic, where something significant has happened, a major life change has happened, and they're having difficulty adjusting, and therefore the emotional stress is overwhelming them to the point that they are now trying to pull back to certain traits that maybe they haven't even done in a long time. But they say, well, this is who I was then when things were stressful before, and this is what I know, and therefore I'm just going to bring back that groove because that's more comfortable for me. We're the ones that are now guiding, saying, actually, this is your opportunity to create a new groove, but once again, not wholesale change, just tweaking it. You're a D&D guy, so I'm like, okay, so we're not trying to like recreate a whole new character here, okay? This is just one dice roll, please. Don't make one dice roll determine the outcome of every attribute. Don't do that. You don't have to put it all in one bucket. And then from the cognitive behavioral side, which is my bread and butter, these are fun because most of the time these people are actually able to quickly grasp the idea. I got something there. I have something about what I'm thinking that is really putting my mind in a different direction. And can you help me figure out what that line is? What is it that I'm saying to myself right now? And you actually get into debates. I've actually done this. I've gotten into debates about what the line is, and the person will come up with their own. And I'll usually acquiesce because that's my character flaw. I mean, that's my style. Because my point is, if they own it, then that sentence that they create for themselves is going to be way better than anything I say. So I'm being very honest. It may seem like in the moment when these people are just like ragging on themselves and you want to like just scream at them or whatever. That's the frustrating part. But the fun part is when they actually get to the point of, I don't want to say truly intellectualization, but just the idea that they're now fully engaged with you and actually trying to create their best life and realizing that it's all on them in a good way. Like it really is up to them. They have full control of it and you're guiding rather than the idea that you are fixing things that are all wrong.
Wow. I'm thinking back to when I was in therapy, and I frankly think I need to go back. But my therapist was doing CBT, but it wasn't nearly as fun as you make it sound. Like, can you be my therapist? We can have fun with that.
We've had this discussion. It's hard to be a best friend and a therapist, especially when you've been my therapist secretly for the longest time.
No, but really, I think I definitely agree with you that whatever the patient comes up with is going to be much more impactful than anything you come up with, because that's just the nature of it, that the internally created system resonates a lot more than whatever is externally created, because you feel ownership and you feel pride over it if you're the one who came up with it. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And like I said, I didn't have nearly as much fun when I was doing CBT with my therapist. So maybe that is just a sign that, I needed a better fit.
Well, no. It's not even that. It doesn't. I'm saying it from a professional standpoint. It's fun for me. I'm not claiming that even in the moment that it comes across that way. I'm not usually jovial, laughing and smiling and all that during the session. It's usually only after I've processed it where I go, wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll see. Just again, I'm not trying to make this entire thing about me, but I am a problem solver. So if it's phrased in that way where it's a problem, and I'm using that term in quotation marks because I don't necessarily think it has to be the problem. But if it's something that needs addressing, well, then let's work out how to fix it. And giving me those trigger questions to solve the problem and work that equation mentally is fascinating because I do that on a regular basis because it's one of the things that helps keep the hamster wheel going. So I'll have to keep that in mind for next time. But with all of that being said, very much looking forward to seeing what happens when we get Ben Grimm on Doc's, I'm sure, structurally reinforced couch.
Hello, Mr. Thing. I'm Dr. Issues.
Please call me Ben.
All right, Ben. How are you doing today?
Well, Doc, I got this crick in my neck that I just can't seem to deal with.
Whoa. I'm not that kind of doctor.
I know. I'm just messing with you. Sheesh, I heard you could take a joke.
Of course. I just didn't expect that from the start. Way to throw me off.
Ain't no harm, right? I don't get a chance to talk to someone like you one-on-one. People like you just tend to run away from an orange pile of rocks.
I don't condone that kind of self-talk. Did I say a word when you came in other than to greet you? I mean it.
Come on. Not even a little reaction.
Well, I'm human, so... Wait, are you fishing for me to say something?
Maybe. What's it to you?
So you wanted to come across as one of the guys, but then you had to point out what makes you different. I'm perplexed already.
Yeah, I get that a lot. Gotta admit, seeing an orange guy with a fugly mug don't do favors with subtlety. I ain't Shakespeare,
There you go again. In record time, you managed to drop more insults about yourself.
You ain't coming across as warm and fuzzy either, pal.
I'm sorry. It's just... I get defensive with patients because I've heard my fair share of depressed talk, and my gut is to fight it tooth and nail. You, just like everyone else, are worthy of love and respect. Even if you don't have hope for that, I'll have it for you.
Well, golly gee, doesn't that make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside? I ain't a sad sack case, Doc.
I'm acknowledging your defense mechanisms because they're so common. More than you know.
Well, sometimes the best defense is a strong offense, and that's what people come to expect.
Well, I don't have expectations. I just have a questioning attitude. I don't want to bombard you with too much too quickly, but you're going to have to touch on some things that you may not want to really talk about at the moment.
Like what?
Well, since you led with it, let's start with the elephant in the room. How do you feel about your appearance?
It's there.
Go on.
Look, I dropped the hints, the jokes. You all know the answer, all right? I hate it. Hate it. But so what? Bad cards, man. Bad cards. You got to make the best of it. And lucky for me, Alicia happens to like it. I don't know what I was going to say I don't know what she sees in me, but she's blind, so she can't see anything in me.
Then what does she love about you?
To be honest, some days I don't know. It's one of the great mysteries of life, ain't it? But I feel lucky just to know her, and the fact that she could have been with any guy and she picked me, well, some days that's what it takes to get me out of bed in the morning.
I don't think you'll appreciate it as much coming from me, but your personality as a whole shines through whatever physical form you may have. You have gravitas.
What? Come on now, don't get fancy on me. You're going to start sounding like Stretch. He starts talking over your head, and I get a cure for insomnia. I'm just a plain old guy trying to make it through the day.
You're really entrenched in this style, huh?
You making fun of how I talk?
No. I mean, you downplay everything about yourself except the one part that everyone can see. Is it to avoid attention? Avoid consequences? What?
Look, I'm not into all sorts of psychobabble, but think about what you're saying. I get to be with some really good people. Susie is the most selfless person you'll ever meet. Flameboy grinds my gears, but I'll be damned, his intensity has saved our ass 1,000,000 times. And then you got the genius that makes the whole shebang go. Who am I to them, huh? Who am I to anybody?
This may sound dumb to say, but forget for a split second who you are to them. Who are you to you?
That's hard, Doc. That's not how life is supposed to be.
What do you mean?
I mean, you keep pushing me to make some kind of a breakthrough, and all I'm getting is a vapor cone.
I'm sorry, what?
Vapor cone is where an object traveling at hypersonic or supersonic speeds reduces the air pressure immediately surrounding itself. That drop in air pressure creates a corresponding drop in temperature. If the air is saturated with water and the drop in temperature goes below the saturation temperature, it's going to form an instantaneous cloud around the object because the air pressure drop is so sudden that the water can't move out of the way. You see it in planes when they hit Mach 1.
Thank you for teaching me something new, especially something that's outside of my particular reading. That was beyond unexpected.
Oh, you make me blush.
Take a compliment, please. You just showed more of yourself than I expected in one session. You managed to take a chance. You're more than you let on. I'm being a bit selfish when I say your goal should be to educate naive people like me in the areas you shine at. Don't shy away. I'm practically begging you. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be with that part of yourself.
Look, Doc, the truth is, I know what I bring to the table. Reed's the brains, Susie's the heart, and Johnny's the mouth. Someone's got to be the muscle. And yeah, I know I can come off a little rough around the edges sometimes, literally and figuratively. But there's nothing wrong with being what people expect of you, as long as you're okay with it. And for all my talk, I got a lot of friends. A lot of people who lay down their lives, and many have, to save my hide. So I'm grateful every day for every single one of them. It's gotten me this far. I don't see any reason to rock the boat now.
Fair enough. Just be mindful that, literally and figuratively, you're going to make waves with everyone you meet because you're a big orange rock. But you can control the impact.
Hardy ha ha. I guess you can't make a joke after all.
Well, it is a joke, even if it's not a fantastic one.
Ah, jeez. That was fun. I like I said, I love the characters, and this was a real joy to write and to inhabit this giant rocky skin of Ben's, even if only for a few moments.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, that I have to admit, and I said this while we were writing, and I think the audience deserves to know. As we were typing out this skit, I said, "Oh my goodness!" I'm thinking to myself, "Okay, this is how someone should be talking to me." So, if that comes through, then so be it. But yeah, this was actually pretty darn cool.
Yeah, and because, like we said at the beginning, Ben's voice is so clearly defined that even when we're writing, and you can look in the show notes because we have the script for the skit in the show notes, you can see we wrote it the way Ben talks with the, I don't see any reason to rock the boat. TA, the apostrophes over things because he doesn't finish, anything with a G. He just drops that. That's the way that Ben talks. So that's the way that we wrote it. And I intentionally wrote it like that because it just helps sell the character and make it a little more real. And because you're not going to read Ben as, okay, well, I'm going to talk to you in this very upper class, even if it's a little gruff, whatever. No. You got to write Ben the way he talks. So, recommended reading is literally any Fantastic Four run. I own, like I said, the last several volumes going back. I think that the Bendis run, the James Robinson run, the Dan Slott run. I mean, I don't have so much of the older ones. I definitely don't have anything from the Lee Kirby era because I don't have that. I don't have those deep pockets. But the 80s, just any Fantastic Four run, even if it's not like an A+ book, Fantastic Four always gets high quality talent on it because it's friggin' Fantastic Four. It is the first family of Marvel. It's a shame that they never attracted that kind of talent for making the movies, but we'll see what happens because John Watts is doing the film, at least the first movie for the MCU. So if it's going to be anything like the Spider-Man trilogy, I'm very, very excited. So anyway, as I said at the top of the show, coming up next week, we've got the interview with Alan and Will from Pocus Hocus. And then we will get into Alex Summers and Echo. So, and as we said, we'll be doing a giveaway. We'll have more details on that next week. So go and follow us on Instagram at Capes on the Couch. We're also at Facebook and Twitter at Capes on the Couch on those platforms as well. Join our Discord. I haven't really plugged our Discord too much, but it's a fantastic community. We've got some great discussions going on there. You know, it's a fun way to just interact with the other fans. We talk about the show, but most of the time we're talking about comics. We're talking about movies and TV shows, separate channel just for mental health. And many of our fans do avail themselves of that opportunity to talk in a safe space and just clear their head a little bit and say, hey, this is something that's bugging me. I just need to get this off my chest, and looking for some feedback, some guidance on things. And so we really do appreciate how much our fans taken advantage of and utilize that. So join the Discord. The link is in the show notes. That we've got our Patreon. And if you really, really like the show, please feel free to subscribe. Patreon.com/Capes on the Couch. You can subscribe $1, $3, or $5, and it'll unlock some additional content, early access, things of that nature. And so that's it. That's going to wrap it up for us this week. Doc, what say you?
Look, I know life can't always be fantastic and there are going to be some grim moments, but aren't you glad that you survived and didn't make it a thing?
I knew you had something. I knew it. I saw it on your face. You had your grin. Your tongue sticking out like Michael Jordan or Jake Delhomme. Yeah, you were sitting and waiting on that one. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.